Well, I'm excited about our next guest, an old friend who I haven't talked to in a long time, TJ Reeves, who is one of the great play-by-play voices in the country today. You probably listen to him on Saturday nights and you don't realize it's TJ because he does all the big college football games and then somehow makes his way back to the Buccaneers wherever they're playing to do the sidelines. And I know that's hairy sometimes because I hear him late on Saturdays and the Bucs play early on Sundays. But hey, TJ, great to see you, buddy. How are you? How's the family?
Hey, we are fantastic. Great to be with you. And yes, our travel does get crazy. First world problems, we make it work. There's been many a time where Doug Bell ends up being, it's the Olympic season, like the Olympic gold medalist of who got out of the event, got to the airport, and got on the plane first. My money's on you on being able to do that with all the travels and travails, my friend. It's not easy.
It is nowadays, especially. It is not easy when you go commercially, but more power to you. And I got to ask you this before we get going about football and a little golf. You're working with the great Gene Deckerhoff again this season. Gene was the longtime Florida State play-by-play guy
Yes.
during the Bobby Bowden era. I mean, he called all the big games, and he is still going strong, man. I'm proud of Gene. And he
Amazing.
still calls a great game.
Gene did Florida State football. I don't know if you know this number, 43 years of
Wow.
Florida State football, including 3 national championships for the Seminoles. He retired from Florida State 2 years ago. This will be his 36th season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, including 2 Super Bowls. So
Gosh.
Gene's got some rings. Gene is in the Florida Sports Hall of Fame. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. And you know it's Buccaneer season when you get the fire them cannons from Gene Deckerhoff, who we love, to have the legend around for another year. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And let's start there because yesterday my buddy Brian Baldinger and the NFL Network, they were live from Buccaneers camp, and I can only imagine how hot it is for
Oh.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp. But they were interviewing Baker Mayfield, one of my guys, because I interviewed him a few years ago at the Accenture match play in Austin. He was out there following Tiger. What an accommodating guy for all the fans. What a nice young man. I just thoroughly enjoyed meeting him. And you work with him, TJ. I really believe the Buccaneers, the Bucs, are getting more bang for their bucks compared to some of these other crazy contracts. I mean, they pay him a lot of money, $30 million or whatever. But still, I think the Bucs have a good deal with Baker.
It's well put that bang for your BUCKS and for the
Yes.
BUCS for the Buccaneers. And you're right. He's a fantastic guy. And I think it's a great marriage because the Buccaneers were searching post Tom Brady who's going to become the quarterback. And Baker Mayfield, let's be honest, was searching and really probably on his last opportunity to start in the NFL, as crazy as that sounds, because Cleveland traded him away to the Carolina Panthers. That didn't work. Didn't even last a full season. They get rid of him. He signs with the LA Rams at the end of the year. Remember that crazy year 2 years
Yes.
ago where he won a couple of games at the end of the year? But, Doug, they didn't really make a decent offer to bring him back or let him maybe challenge for the starting job. So this Tampa Bay situation a year ago was probably last best chance to remain a regular starter in the NFL, and he seized it and played very well for minimal money. Now he's been given a new multi-year contract somewhere around like $50 million guaranteed, very similar to the money that Doug Bell makes in these deals, $50 million guaranteed. So he's now put some roots down here, got a wife, got a newborn baby, and he's got a chance to be the conquering hero as the quarterback of the Buccaneers. And again, there's a lot of expectation that this is going to be a playoff team, a playoff contending team with Mayfield at the helm.
You know, I understand the quarterback position is the position in football, no matter NFL, college, wherever. I understand that. And I understand the dynamics of the financials. And the salary cap is bigger this year. It's going to continue to expand. I mean, I understand. But I mean, TJ, when you start paying guys $55 million a year, I mean, to me, that's madness, right? Or is it just
Right.
the market?
Where does it end is the
Yeah.
great question. And look, we all would want the money, but if
Sure.
Tua in Miami and Jordan Love in Green Bay are now worth in the neighborhood of 40 or 45 million, what is Patrick Mahomes worth at that point? Is he worth 50% more? Is he worth double that? Where are we headed? Are we going to have a quarterback making 60 or 70 million dollars a year in our lifetime? It certainly looks that way with the way we're headed with the salary. So the money is crazy. Primarily the quarterbacks get the lion's share of it. it's fascinating because running backs now, Doug, we grew up, we're a little older.
Yes.
We grew up in the era when a running back was everything. Running
Right.
backs don't make anything anymore relative to quarterbacks. If you're not a quarterback or a wide receiver or a left tackle or an edge pass rusher, you're not making the massive money anymore. Everything else just kind of slots down from there. It's amazing what the NFL salary structure has become, but you're right. The quarterback money is we're gonna have $1 billion contract signing in the NFL in our lifetime. Somebody's gonna get not a billion guaranteed, but $1 billion deal at some point. Get ready for it. The money is that lucrative and that crazy right now. I don't know where it stops.
So inflation is not hitting the NFL. Is that what you're telling me?
It's not hitting it to the same degree that we're getting it. I don't think at the grocery store or the mortgage payment or for gasoline or the different things that we need. But yeah, go get a loan from your local NFL quarterback if you need one.
All right, now I wanted to kind of bank over to the Houston Texans because our show is heard in Alabama, and D'Amico Ryans grew up in Bessemer,
Yeah.
played for Nick at Alabama, was a great player, and really was a really good player in the NFL, and now seemingly is a pretty good head coach. Small sample size, but I thought he showed a lot last season especially, and now the general manager has done a nice job of bringing some pretty key components into the mix. I mean, are the Houston Texans not being talked about enough, TJ?
And they should be. And by the way, they played a wild game with my Buccaneers last year, and you love
Yes.
this. That late in that game, Mayfield throws a go-ahead touchdown in Houston to silence the crowd with under a minute to go. And I've done this for long enough that I know it's not completely over, but I'm now down on the sideline going, okay, we're going to have a happy post-game show. He's going to be in a good mood. We're all good. And then C.J. Stroud, in the span of like 30 seconds and about 3 passes, puts them right in scoring range, and they score on virtually the final play of the game. And now I have a down-in-the-mouth, dejected post-game show where nobody wants to talk to you. They want to act like that you have some kind of viral infestation and they don't want anything to do with you. So the Texans deserve a lot of credit. They took strides last year. They made the playoffs a year ago. So there should be some expectation, obviously, on them. And from everybody that I talked to that's dealt with D'Amico Ryans, whether it be at Alabama or when he was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco or now to the media people in Houston, he is fantastic to deal with. Great human being. And it's not a surprise that now carries over to molding his football team and having them play hard for him. So, yeah, Houston appears to be stock up right now in the NFL.
Well, I mean, I think if you ask Coach Saban, his all-time favorite player and players, I mean, you can't pick one. I think D'Amico would certainly be in his top 10, if not his top 5, because he was the guy. He was the head coach on the field, and I think now we've seen that as a head coach. I mean, he's gone from a great player coach to a head coach. So I think that works. It doesn't always work, but in his case, it's working.
And you mentioned Nick Saban. It is going to be weird. I'll just give you a little sidebar
Yes.
that we go into a college season without him on the sideline.
I
But
know.
I mean, it's crazy, these kind of stats. The Buccaneers drafted a defensive end pass rusher from Alabama in Chris Braswell. And I don't think the number is 963, but it's pretty close to how many players in the first or second round have come out of Alabama. It's over 50, and it may be closer to like 70. 7-0. First and second round picks for Nick Saban at Alabama in his tenure, of which D'Amico Ryans was one. So it's remarkable when you start going over all of the impact players that have come out of the Alabama program really over the last 15, 16 years, something like that. So it's amazing, and Ryans is part of that. And of course, lest we forget, they got Will Anderson, the pass rusher in Houston, in a draft day move with D'Amico Ryans. Who can forget that image of him on the phone in their war room jumping up and down because they had made a trade that was going to let them get Will Anderson to pair with C.J. Stroud as kind of building blocks in Houston. And Alabama just keeps reloading talent into the NFL. It's crazy.
All right, now a new coach, though. Kalen DeBoer comes in. And listen, TJ, I mean, you'll be calling some Alabama games somewhere this season, and he's doing all the right things. And right now the honeymoon is just wonderful. Great recruiting class. He's got some kids that have transferred in that are really good and ready to go. They were good players at other schools. I think offensively they're going to be incredible. The secondary that Saban, that was his baby. They lost a lot. I mean, what about Kalen DeBoer now from the outside looking at the program, TJ? I mean, 2 losses, 3 losses. My goodness, he better like barricade the doors.
Right. Well, but I mean, this is a guy, I don't know him. I just know of him. This is a guy that's won a tremendous amount of games
Yeah.
at the NAIA level, then moves into the University of Washington, and suddenly within a couple of years they're a national championship contender. They became the first Pac-12 team ever to win a college football playoff semifinal game and
Right.
get in the national title game. He had, I believe, 7 players drafted, including Michael Penix, the quarterback going to the Atlanta Falcons. 7 players drafted in the first 2 rounds of the draft. Washington, not Alabama, not Ohio State. So that says something for the talent that he was able to procure. And look, Nick Saban did not have connections to Alabama or to Bear Bryant, but if you know how to recruit, if you know how to coach, that can translate. So you're right. There's now going to be a little expectation on Kalen DeBoer, but he's got a track record of winning a bunch. So I don't think they're going to be hurting at the U of A.
Well, we'll see. The jury is out, as they say. But
Sure.
Needless to say, Georgia, Ohio State, preseason. I mean, here we are a few weeks away from the kickoff. They're 1-2 or 1-1A.
Yes.
Don't you agree?
You would think Texas is another one that's in there with what happens with them now in the SEC. We got to get used to so much new. I mean, Doug, at the risk of us being get off our lawn guys, we have got to get used to USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington playing Big Ten teams, and they are
Yes.
conference games. I mean, UCLA is going to play like an Indiana or a Minnesota. USC is going to play a Maryland or play a Wisconsin, and they're going to call it a conference game. And Oregon and Washington, the same thing. And we've got to get used to Texas and Oklahoma now playing South Carolina and Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, and it's now a conference game. So the musical chairs of conference realignment, crazy. I mean, the Big 12 now. The Big 12 adds 4 new teams in Utah and Colorado and Arizona State, on top of adding last year UCF, Houston, BYU, and Cincinnati. That's 8 new teams in the Big 12. And for a lot of the existing members, they didn't play maybe one of the teams from last year. So a lot of these schools are going, we got a brand new conference. You know, the Baylors, the Iowa States, the Kansas States. They're going, we got a brand, Kansas, Texas Tech. We got a brand new conference. We got 8 new teams in the Big 12. It's crazy.
Well, it is crazy. And I love Matt Rule now. Now, I think maybe Nebraska will go back to a bowl game this year, speaking of the Big Ten. But I love that media days where he said, and this drew the ire of the SEC fans, right? It doesn't take a lot. But he said that in regards to the Big Ten, his conference, we are the NFL of college football. Oh, my. TJ, I mean, he's stirring the pot.
Well, of course. And they have had a lot of players drafted in the NFL, not from Nebraska, by the way.
Right.
And Matt Rule doesn't know a whole lot. I'm just throwing barbs about the NFL because he didn't last very long in the NFL either.
Yeah, right.
Before the Carolina Panthers fired him. Look, nobody is disagreeing that it is an arms race figuratively on teams and big-time brand names, and we're probably going to be left with like a Big 2 eventually. Maybe the Big 12 hangs in there. Probably they will, but it could be that we're only talking about the Big 10 and the SEC. And here we go again. We're going to maybe live long enough where one of those conferences has 24 teams or more, almost like the NFL. So I get it. I mean, the Big 10 is in a bunch of major media markets, as you know, when we talk broadcasting, all over the Midwest, the upper Midwest, and now they've added Los Angeles and Seattle and Portland to the portfolio, and they're not done yet. But SEC fans would like to remind the Big Ten that every time it seems like they play the Big Ten in bowl games or in the college football playoff, it doesn't work out so well for the pseudo NFL of college, the Big Ten, does it? We don't think so. No.
Well, and listen, I mean, the Big Ten's they're gonna get 4 of the 12 in the playoffs. SEC will get 4 of the 12, 5, who knows, maybe, but more than likely they'll each get 4, and that'll leave 4 for the rest. So the Big Ten and SEC will still dominate the conversation when the playoffs roll around.
And how about that for the inclusion of wanting more people in the playoff, where we're going to have some years where like 75% of the playoff is 2 conferences. So we'll see how this all works. I mean, I don't know what your feeling is. It's going to be fascinating on how this works out for this year and in the short term, because I believe they have damaged the end of the college football regular season, which used to mean everything for trying to survive, get into a big time bowl, or get into the playoff. Now we're basically not going to remember what happens in November or late November more so than what happens in the 4 weekends of this playoff. And it's eventually going to go to 16 teams. We're going to much more remember the upsets in December. Who gets beat in the college football playoff will be a bigger deal than who won their rivalry game or who won their conference championship game to get them in the playoff. Again, I understand the money is so ridiculous they were going to expand the playoff, but I don't know that this is better for college football's regular season and the end of the regular season, because a lot of these teams at the end of the year will have the attitude of, doesn't matter if we win that rivalry game. We're already in the thing that matters. We're already in the 12 or 16 team playoff. So that'll be different. And we'll see what the short-term sample size looks like on that.
And TJ, listen, you do both college and NFL, and so here we have Florida State, Georgia Tech, August 24th in Dublin, Ireland. That's the start of the season. And then the national championship, I think, is January 24th. I mean, that's the longest college football season in history.
You're correct.
I don't know. There's a lot of positives, and I tend to like the positive things about college football, even with all the chaos. But I just think the season and the fact that they're going to play a playoff weekend, a wild card weekend for the NFL. I mean, it's going to be, that's a lot of football, but I don't know.
And does it get lost in the shuffle?
Yes.
When you've got, and it's the first time ever that you've got these 4 opening round games at home sites, and it's competing on a day where the NFL is going to have games on. And one of them, by the way, is going to be Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes that are playing on that day. So This is all new, but they wanted to expand this. ESPN wanted to expand this, and now those 4 weekends, we're going to be locked in on whatever happens with those, because I mean, just when you think you have it figured out. This will be one of the funny things that I'm almost rooting for, is wait until a team is seated like 11th and they suddenly pull an upset on somebody's home field, and then they pull an upset the next weekend. And then the screaming will be, well, maybe we've made a mistake with allowing so many people into the playoff because the 11th seed is now playing for the national championship. Well, you can't have that argument both ways, but stay tuned. Let's see what happens if there's upsets.
Well, and with a long season, more injuries, and so that upset could technically happen. You're right, so that'll be interesting. Hey, I wanted to talk some golf because I'm still doing a little golf, as you know.
Sure.
And you were involved with golf, and I remember years ago you called me up like late. You were doing these late radio shows, and we'd always talk about what happened in the particular golf tournament. I want to get your thoughts. I mean, obviously, Player of the Year, Scottie Scheffler, in my mind, is still way ahead as they hit the home stretch. 6 wins. The Masters, the Players' Championship, 4 signature wins. You have the X-Man Xander, 2 majors. Player of the Year, still got to be Scotty, right? Or are we gonna base this on what happens the rest of the way?
Well, the FedEx Cup playoffs will obviously be a factor.
Yeah.
At the time that we're doing this, we've got the Olympics where they're both there. What happens if one of them steps forward somehow to win the gold? Maybe not the gold, but wins a medal that the other one doesn't win. Maybe that's a differentiation of that. And look, I have been a fan of golf and play the sport for the better part of my life, for 45 plus years of my life. And you and I got to know each other because in the earlier part of this century, now I'm feeling old again, I began working for XM when XM Satellite Radio had the PGA Tour, eventually merged with Sirius, and it became Sirius XM and PGA Tour Radio. I was the morning guy for 2 years on Sirius XM's PGA Tour Radio, 2008 through 2010. So I come at this with the knowledge and with the understanding of the tour and what a Goliath that it is. But I also want to see at some point the best of the best still playing each other in major championships, etc. And the LIV Golf Tour has got outstanding golfers on it. And 2 of the LIV golfers won 2 of the major championships this year, which reinforced once again, or one of them won it this year. Right. But they or both or 2, right? Bryson and Brooks.
Bryson won the U.S. Open, yeah.
I am somebody that has the attitude of, can't we all get along with figuring this out with the LIV Golf Tour and with the PGA Tour? And can an argument not be made? At least it's an argument that some of what Scotty Scheffler is doing, or Xander Schauffele or whomever, you may not have had the same success if some of those names like Bryson and Brooks and Rahm and the guys that are at the top, Dustin Johnson, whomever of the Live Golf Tour, had been playing in events with them. We'll never know. They're not allowed to be on that tour anymore. They don't cohabitate anymore. But I think it's a fascinating argument that some of the world's best are playing on another tour, and Rahm just won this past weekend in England. I just come at it with, I'm a fan of the game of golf. I'm interested in exciting golf, and they can work the rest out among the multimillionaires and the billionaires on how they dole out the money. That's my take.
Well, I believe now that these negotiations between the two leagues, if you will, tours, are ongoing, that eventually, and very soon, I believe, and Tiger's in the middle of these negotiations, things will be worked out. There'll be crossover play. I think they both need each other now, as you've described. It'd be great to have Bryson back playing with some of the PGA Tour guys, and it'd be fun to have Scotty playing against some of the guys on the other side. And I think that's what we're going to get to. I mean, it's amazing, the old USFL NFL proposition, right? Eventually, USFL just ran out of money. I mean, they just
Correct.
And the billionaire guys who own the teams were just like, it's a bad business decision. We got to, we've exhausted it ourselves. Live is not like that. Their ratings are minuscule. Nobody really knows when they play or where they play, and yet they just keep going. But obviously, the PGA Tour, they got to intertwine, and it's going to happen very quickly. And I do believe when I hear Tiger say, "Hey, negotiations are continuing," I believe it. I believe they're continuing. I believe they're complicated, but I think it'll be worked out.
And here's the other thing. It's not going to be that many events if they coexist.
Right, exactly.
Because the Live Golf requires their guys to play all the events. So there's going to be blowback on, okay, wait a minute, are you going to add 4 more to our schedule or 6 more to our schedule? How does that work in our schedule? I think the bigger thing that has to be resolved, and we don't have to go too far into the weeds here and bore people to death, but the official golf rankings, the official world golf rankings, that has to be resolved. Just to the extent that the Live guys may not deserve the same amount of ranking points as a PGA Tour event. If you want to knock them for having a 54-hole event and knock the points down, okay. But to uniform across the board say, we're not going to regard this as anything. It doesn't matter. You get 0 for playing in these events in a heavy-handed approach. I don't think that's right either. And that's the avenue for many of these guys to get into the major championships is through World Golf ranking points if they're not playing in PGA Tour events that would exempt them or other ways. I know there's an argument that says, well, then just go qualify for the U.S. Open, etc. But it seems to me that part of the brokered piece has to be the official World Golf rankings have to recognize a little bit of what the Live Golf Tour is doing. If you want to say you're not playing a 72-hole event, you're not getting the same points as a PGA Tour 72-hole event, that's a fair argument. And then that's up to the Live Tour as to what they want to do. I don't understand why that can't be worked out where a player on that tour has an avenue now to try to get into major championships that they currently don't have.
No, I agree. And I'm still amazed, though. Here we are in 2024, and golfers are now making, money like a quarterback in the National Football League, where our conversation started. Isn't it crazy? Scotty Scheffler right now, with his wins in the signature events and potentially what he could win in the FedEx Cup and ultimately the Tour Championship there at Eastlake. We're talking Jordan Love Tua money potentially, right?
Yeah, he could make $25 or $30 million in tournament winnings from a single season. And you have the legends of the game who didn't make 20, 25 millions in their career, despite winning 10 or 12 or more majors or number of PGA Tour events and majors combined. They win 20, 25 all-time events, 30 all-time events, and they don't make that kind of money. So it is crazy, the amount of money in all of sports and in golf. And again, I realize for the average fan, their eyes are glazed over at this point over who's arguing over what money they make between the tours and the money. We just want to see great golf, Doug Bell.
I'm with you. And I can't believe I can't believe we're winding down golf so quickly right into football, but I guess we're getting older, TJ. Everything moves faster as we get older, right?
Yes,
right?
It does. You remember this, and I know your kid. I keep keeping up with your son, who's a college football player, and I remember him being a little guy. You remember being around me when my twins were born, doing PGA Tour radio. They are now 16. 16, and we are practicing driving. As you know, that can be a harrowing thing. So time marches on. I
Yeah.
still remember watching Michael Phelps winning the swimming golds in Beijing Olympics in '08, holding my infant twins. And 16 years later, they're practicing driving while the Olympics are on my TV. Time does fly.
I'm praying for you as you teach your daughters how to drive.
Times two. Times two with the car insurance. It's definitely an interesting time.
Well, TJ, it's been great to catch up, my friend, and I appreciate you reaching out to me a couple of weeks ago. It had been a long time, and best of luck this season. I know I'm going to hear you driving around the car, on satellite radio, and even on Sunday when I'm traveling, I'll listen to a little NFL, and I always dial it in because I love Gene, and I just love his enthusiasm. And then they throw it down to you on the field, and so it's good stuff. You guys make a nice team.
And back at you with the coverage on PGA Tour Radio through SiriusXM and through the tour and their apps. I love the guys. You guys are my brothers from 20 years ago, where we all were together calling golf and being around golf. So I still enjoy that as a fan as well. Keep up the great work. The mutual admiration for our professional endeavors still exists. You keep up the great work, and however and wherever I can help you, I will. You know that. I'll jump on with you whenever you need me.